Long ago, when the world still listened to the stars, two souls found one another exactly as fate intended. He was a young knight, unpolished by legend and still learning what it meant to be brave. His armor bore no great victories, but his heart already leaned toward honor. She was a girl of the realm, bright-spirited and kind, yet bound by invisible chains forged from duty and circumstance. Though her feet walked freely upon the earth, her life was quietly imprisoned. When their paths crossed, something ancient stirred. For the first time she felt seen. He gave her a gift rarer than gold, moments of happiness she could carry with her when the road ahead grew heavy. By day, they wandered through forgotten ruins, tracing the echoes of long-lost lives. By night, they lay beneath the open skies, the stars themselves bearing witness to their whispers and laughter. Together they learned the world, its beauty, its sorrow, its quiet promises. And when the moment came to part, she gathered each memory like a precious talisman, tucking them deep into her heart, where they would sustain her through every shadowed path to come. One still night, when the moon hung full and luminous in the sky, she thought to run away with him into unknown lands, far beyond the reach of the life that bound her. Her young heart, trembling and uncertain, believed it might be the only escape from her invisible chains. Yet sleep claimed her before she could move, and with it came a dream, a vision of his future laid bare before her eyes. She saw his rise, his victories, the greatness he was destined to embrace, so long as nothing, not even love, weighed him down. And in that dream, love asked of her something far harder than desire or longing. So she let him go. She released him without revealing her reason, believing that if he thought her love untold, he would roam unburdened, soar unbound, and fulfill the destiny the world had carved for him. Years turned like the axle of the earth. Seasons came and went. Still, she guarded their memories, returning to them in quiet moments, closing her eyes to feel loved again. Then, on a spring night touched with the last whispers of winter, chill, after years of longing and a lifetime of waiting, fate stirred once more. At long last she found him. Her knight, strong and unwavering, yet tempered by the hidden trials he had endured, stood before her, as though some secret tether had guided him, as though his heart had never strayed from its rightful place. Without a word, he kissed her, as if he had known all along that she had been calling him back through the years. That night was theirs alone, a single night written in the stars long before they met. The kiss stirred what had slumbered in her heart for countless years, and the air around them shimmered with a tender, quiet magic, as though time itself had paused to witness their return. They needed no words, for their souls had always spoken to one another. Even in their youth, when they barely understood the treasure they had discovered, a quiet bond hummed between them. Now, aged by time and tempered by life, they carried knowledge that only deepened their connection. Without a single word, they knew a language of love unlike any they had ever known. A love that belonged solely to them, whispered across years and lifetimes. But shadows have their own magic, subtle and unyielding. Fear flickered in the knight's eyes that night, a shadow born of everything and nothing. And in that instant, the warmth between them vanished. The air seemed to shiver, carrying away the brief tenderness they had shared. And before she could reach for him, he was gone, vanishing like a whisper on the wind, free as ever, leaving only the faint echo of his presence behind. She felt it linger for a heartbeat, like a spell unraveling, both soft and cruel. When it finally faded, tears traced silent rivers down her cheeks, sorrow she could neither stop nor soften. Her chains remained, still and heavy, a quiet reminder that some bonds are meant only to be held in memory. After that night, she felt him only in the quiet, in the spaces between heartbeats, in the pauses of her own breath, as though his spirit still reached for hers across distance and time. She clutched that single night to her chest, weaving it into the constellation of memories that had long guided her. In those memories, he was always her hero, though he never knew it. The hand that lifted her from despair, the steadfast presence in a world that often threatened to break her. He lived in her heart for decades, not as a ghost, but as a steady, quiet flame, warming the corners of her soul. She knew, with unwavering certainty, that her knight remained honorable. It was how she had always seen him, despite the shadows that now haunted him. Despite the fears that clouded his path, she never saw him as anything less than her hero, the knight who had saved her through forests of doubt, rivers of sorrow, and mountains of disappointment. Though he was no longer by her side, he remained her hero, steadfast and luminous in the deepest chambers of her heart. Life in time reshaped her. She moved forward as one must, step by careful step, building a life in the long absence of a love never forgotten. She learned how to carry its weight without letting it consume her, how to breathe around the hollow it left behind. Her night vanished into the great forest of the unknown, swallowed by paths she could not follow, and she remained behind, bound to a realm she could not escape, her chains invisible yet unyielding. Still she endured, holding her head high, her heart tethered to the memory of the one who had once shown her the light beyond her prison. As the years gathered around her, she understood at last. Some bonds are not made for beginnings or endings. They live beyond time itself, woven into the fabric of the cosmos, tied quietly at the soul. So, on quiet nights, beneath familiar stars, she returned to him in memory. And there, in that sacred space, they were never apart, until fate drew them together again. Her knight returned, but he wasn't the knight she remembered from her dreams. Time had weathered him, dulled the shine of his armor, and carved distance into his eyes. The hero she had preserved in her heart stood before her as a stranger shaped by battles she had never seen, choices she had never known. She realized then that memory is both a sanctuary and a deception. Untouchable. While life had moved on without her permission, the knight she loved still existed, but only in the sacred place where time could not reach him. And so she mourned quietly, not the man who returned, but the one who lived forever in her soul. At first he surprised her. He confessed his love, opening a door she had long believed existed only in her own heart. For a fleeting moment she stood unchained and unafraid, gazing into a truth she thought she had carried alone. He mirrored the bond she had always felt. That deep soul connection, the way memories lived and breathed, bending time through feeling. In that instant, she knew he had carried her too. For one breath of time she glimpsed his heart as it truly was. But fate is cruel in its humor. It offers revelations without permanence, truths without shelter. Just as her hands reached for what had finally been named, the world intervened. Old wounds resurfaced. Fear disguised itself as reason. The light clouded once more. Darkness crept back in, and fear, disguised as anger, masked as hate, rose to claim him. The door closed as if it had never been opened at all, leaving only the echo of what might have been. Time had stripped the shine from his armor and dulled the honor he once wore as naturally as breath. Where light once rested, a shadow now clung to him, faithful and unyielding. He was no longer the boy of poetry and wonder, no longer the gentle soul who spoke to the stars and believed they listened. The world had hardened him, and sorrow had taught him a language she did not know how to speak, one forged of silence, bitterness, and retreat. Still, she believed. She always had. She offered her love freely, believing it could call the light back to him, believing it might remind him of the man he had once been before the world taught him to armor his heart. To him it felt stolen, like a fate decided without his consent, an ending pressed upon him before he was ready to choose it. What she gave as devotion, he received as loss, and in that misalignment, the distance between them widened once more, and then the cruelest truth revealed itself. Her chains were gone at last, broken by time, endurance, and quiet courage. Yet now it was he who stood bound. His shackles were forged not of iron, but of bitterness and guilt, heavier than any. She reached for them with careful hands, hoping to unfasten what she once had, believing she might free him as she had before. But his heart had become a fortress, sealed against mercy, guarded by old wounds and unspoken sorrow, impenetrable as any legend ever told. She wished she could save him, unmake the suffering that time had carved into his spirit, because her love had always been gentle, always born of kindness. She had never come to wound him, not once deliberately. She had only ever loved him, quietly, in the secret corners of her heart. Yet fear, sharpened into a weapon by the years, fell between them, and with it, he shattered her heart into 1,000 fragile pieces. And when a heart breaks in such a way, torn from the very soul, the universe seemed to have made for you. It becomes a pain few spirits are ever meant to endure. So she stood before him, loving him still, and learned the oldest truth whispered in every unfairy tale. Not every prison can be unlocked by true love alone. And not every soul is ready to be saved, even by the one who once set them free. She looked up into the night sky, memories of their youth shimmering among the stars, and sent forth a quiet hope that he might one day find his way to healing. In the soft, sacred pauses of her life, she still felt him there, alive in memory and spirit, though the bond between them had stretched and fractured. She wished only happiness for him. She may never see her knight again, but in the depths of her heart, through the pain and the shattered pieces of love she carried, she still hoped that he would one day shine again, to become the man she had always believed him to be. And perhaps, in some hidden corner of the universe, remember the light they once shared,